Seymour Hersh, longtime investigative journalist, who's won the Pulitzer Prize, has this long piece on his Substack, How America Took Out the Nord Stream Pipeline, or as Karine Jean-Pierre would call it, the Nordstrom Pipeline. That actually happened, not making that up. The report says that last June, United States Navy divers operating under the cover of a widely publicized midsummer NATO exercise planted explosives that 3 months later destroyed 3 of the 4 Nord Stream pipelines. Nord Stream 1, yes, that was operational, and Nord Stream 2, which was built but not yet operational. And that we did it, we had promised that we would do it. Some people may forget. Joe Biden actually said that if the Russians invaded Ukraine, we were going to take out these pipelines, like we were going to shut them down. And he was asked how, and he was basically like, "Trust me, we'll do it." And then it happened, and people like Tucker said it was us, and then it got all sorts of blowback for being a Putin apologist. But according to Seymour Hersh, it was us, and that we sabotaged the pipelines in the most covert way popular. We used a team of Navy divers that are not members of our Special Ops Command, whose covert operations have to be reported to Congress. Because, Hersh continues, as long as Europe remained dependent on those pipelines for cheap natural gas, Washington was afraid countries like Germany would be reluctant to supply Ukraine with the money and weapons we wanted Ukraine to have to help defeat Russia. So this is rather extraordinary because, okay, you might think, great, we're hurting Russia. We're hurting the EU. We're hurting our own allies, all of whom are part of NATO, which we're part of as well. And it does leave you with real questions about, is there blowback to us as a result of this? Does anyone care that we did this? The White House totally denying it right now. Absolutely not. Bland, not specific, but not true, utterly untrue. A complete fiction is what they're saying.
Yeah, what struck me about it was if it was so easily false, people would in the media cover it and then reject it. But it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. There's no coverage whatsoever. Maybe a little bit in the Daily Mail or something. It's almost as if all the media said we're not going to discuss this. And that's kind of strange because I know he's 85, but Seymour Hersh is he has a theme that he's very anti-U.S. government. And sometimes he might lie or Abu Ghraib, but sometimes he's a little out there with the Syrian chemical. He was kind of defending Assad. But the point is that the left always supports his allegations, almost always. And he's got a mixed record. But this time they're not. And that tells me something. And I think it's one of those landmines. It's just a little story, but the implications are so overwhelming. And you pointed them out. The first is we're not at war with Russia, and if this were to be true, we attacked a Russian asset, a Russian property, and we destroyed it in a time of peace. That's almost an act of war against a country that's got 7,000 nuclear weapons. The second thing is that Germany is a NATO partner; it's a joint owner. And it was headed into winter. So if that were true, we were saying, well, according to our geostrategic agenda, we're willing to have 80 million Germans get a little cold this winter and get in their heat rooms and chop some wood because we feel the United States has geostrategic agendas that trump the ability of Germans to keep warm in the winter. And then, as you said, when Joe Biden mentioned that, and he was echoed by Victoria Nuland, the Undersecretary of State, and said, almost the same words, don't worry, one way or the other, they will not have this. And then after it happened, she sort of gave a high five to Ted Cruz and said, like you, I'm happy this thing is a bunch of metal under the sea. They were almost publicizing in a way that suggested that, well, it can't be covert. And as you said, they didn't use special teams, or they said they didn't, that require eight or so congressional leaders to be apprised. So if it happened and they did not apprise Congress and they went around it and they really basically attacked Russia and they destroyed the property that was very valuable to an ally, it has a lot of really dangerous consequences for them. Because I think the American people would even be outraged. And it's one of those stories, just very quickly, if you look at the laptop, it's old stuff, except if on that laptop there is evidence that Joe Biden got money and he didn't pay taxes. I mean, everybody fights about deductions, but one thing the IRS goes off is unreported income. That is very serious. Same thing about the documents. We're sick of the document story, but if any of those documents, any of that material can be proved that Hunter Biden used it for personal gain, that's a landmine. Another story was, I don't know if you saw that very weird story that was reported by the Israeli prime minister, that there was a deal in progress between the Ukraine and Russia, discussions that maybe they would accept the 2014 borders and Zelensky wouldn't be in NATO, but he'd get to rearm. Putin would pull back, and the Israelis, I mean, there's a lot of contention over it, but the Israeli prime minister reported that he was in on it, and the United States made it clear that they did not want that to happen. And if that's true, that's another thing that has explosive consequences, that we interfered in a war between Russia and Ukraine in the sense that we wanted it to go on. And maybe Ukraine even didn't. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what's been reported. And there is some substantiation by the Israelis. So all of these things, this administration is so reckless that there's elements of these stories that we just dismiss, that if they were fully investigated and turned out to be true, they would be impeachable.
Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available right now to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. It's not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program, of course, is complicated, but nobody knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work. They figure out how to get you money if you qualify, and then they'll share a percentage of the cash they get for you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify for this, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Let covidtaxrelief.org do the tough thing for you right now, and that is manage the paperwork and the administrative headaches that they pose between you and your money to help you get up to $26,000 per employee. You may be sitting on a pot of money and you don't even know it. Go to covidtaxrelief.org, 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 and check it out. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.